Hello shoppers, ladies and gentlemen, Castle Towers. It gives us tremendous pleasure to welcome the amazing Dr. Karen Phillip from Channel 9 here to donate her time for the Share the Love event at Castle Towers Valentine's Day. I cannot tell you how amazing this lady is, and a member of World Kindness Australia. She's always there providing support, and you'll do yourself a favour, come on down and hear these pearls of wisdom from the doctor. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you so much, Michael, for that wonderful introduction, and welcome to everybody that has come, and also everyone in Castle Towers here that is joining us today for this presentation, and hopefully to enjoy our Mates Fashion Parade that will also be on here at the centre, level 2, just outside David Jones at 12 o'clock. What I've been asked to speak about today is parenting. Now, most of us here, if I look around, have children with them today, and if they haven't got them here today with them, they could be at home or planning to have children, perhaps in the future. And what we find that when we do become parents is that we are challenged at times by our children. And even though we love them and we adore our children, want to do everything for them, we get challenged by them, and then we think, well, how do I respond to this? What do I say? How do I have my child listen to me when I'm asking them to do something? How do I have them respond to me without conflict or an argument? Now, we certainly take the kinder option in all of those challenges. And what I mean by that is to enable the child to have a choice, if you like, and I am huge on choices. None of us, including children, let alone the adults, like to be told what to do, how they should do it, or when it needs to be done by. None of us like that. And while we think, well, children need to do what we ask of them, they certainly do. But it's the way that we present that request to our children really does depend on the response that we receive. So if you're in a situation at home where you're telling your children to do something and they're not listening to you, and we tell them again and again, and we raise our voice and it starts to escalate, then the entire family becomes conflictual and angry. Things are often said that shouldn't be said, and often things aren't done that you originally requested. So what I teach parents is to do it slightly different and kinder, if you like. So I suggest to parents to let the family know the new rules or boundaries, if you like, within the home, and tell the children, Mum and Dad are going to ask you once. If you don't do it that first time, then there may be a consequence, or we can discuss the reason why that thing wasn't done that we requested, and there could be a legitimate reason. But then I go on and suggest to the parents that we give the child choices, and two choices are always really important. When we give a child or even an adult a choice, then the choice that they make and they choose becomes theirs. They own it, and they're likely to go forward and respond to that. So it could be something along the lines of, okay, sweetheart, your room is a dreadful mess. I'd like you to clean it up. Would you like to do that before we have dinner or before you watch your program tonight? So you're giving the child a choice, rather than going in saying, that room's a disgrace, I want it tidied up now. Sometimes the child doesn't respond as quickly as we'd like them to. So we go in again and we go, I asked you to tidy it up, it's still a mess, what's going on? And we often start to escalate and it becomes an issue. But when we go in and say, the room is a mess, when would you like to tidy it up? And give them the two choices, before dinner or before your show. You will find in most instances that the child will respond with, oh, I'm getting to choose. Okay, well, I'm going to choose before dinner. Great choice. Whatever they say, great choice. So they own it because they've elected it. And you will find in most every instance that the child would go ahead and do exactly what it is that you've requested because it's been their choice. Now, another way that we can use this, and a lot of parents speak to me about issues at dinner time. My child won't eat their meal. They won't consume the healthy foods that I've given them. They just want dessert, or they carry on. And again, that causes issues within the family. And we want mealtime to be comfortable, to be engaging and happy, to catch up on our days, to talk about what's going on in our lives. So what I normally suggest to parents is, if the child is saying, I'm not eating that, we don't say, yes, you will, or you better, or any threats. We say, okay, no problem, that's your choice. But we adjust it slightly, and we say, but you know what, mummy's going to eat, or daddy's going to eat their dinner, and I'm going to have a full tummy, because this is a really healthy meal that we've made for you, and I'm going to go to bed with a really full tummy, and I'm going to sleep really long in my comfy bed with a full tummy. But, and this is where the choices come in, but you don't have to eat that if you don't want to. But unfortunately, sweetheart, you're going to go to bed with an empty tummy. And you might wake up really hungry. So the two choices are, you can leave the table now and go to bed with an empty tummy and be hungry, or you can stay at the table and you can have some of your healthy meal and go to bed with a full tummy. Whatever you decide, darling, I don't mind, because I'm going to have a full tummy. So you choose what you want to do. Now, occasionally the child might say, well, fine, I'm not eating it. That's okay. But they will go to bed hungry. They will not be coming back getting more food or dessert later. That's important. But we find that about 95% of the children, right from the word go, they choose the wiser option. And it is a form of kindness, and that's what we're here to talk about also today, the kinder option. When we escalate, when we argue, that's not being kind to ourselves or another person. So we want to take the kinder option with everything we do, including speaking and engaging with our children. So when we do have these issues with our children, and the challenges will come on perhaps a daily, if not weekly basis, then what we need to do is engage with them in the kinder option and give them the choices. I think a lot of us may shortchange our children. And I find most of the time, children will actually choose what's in their best interest and what's right for them. They will certainly argue the point with you to get their point across. You know, you can't tell me what to do, you can't order me to do anything, and that's fair enough, and we may have been exactly the same as a young child ourselves. But if we adjust our language slightly, we can actually remove conflict from our homes virtually entirely. We don't need to argue. We certainly don't need to argue with our children. And we don't want our children going to school of a morning or preschool after we've had a fight or an argument, such as, you know, you need to get ready, turn off the TV, get ready, eat your breakfast. All of those sorts of arguments really don't need to occur. And even the mornings, which is a major issue for many parents that come to see me. I can't get them out of bed. I can't get them to eat breakfast. They won't get dressed. I've got to get to work, or I've got to get them to school on time. What do I do? Well, depending on the child and depending on the parents, there's a few things that I suggest. One, put an alarm clock in your child's room. I've had parents with children the age of 15 or 16 complaining that their child won't get up when they're woken up. And so why don't you give the child that responsibility? And a child at the age of 5 or 6 actually can accept that responsibility, and if the alarm goes off, they know that they need to get up. So we're giving it back to them. We do parent our children, but we sometimes tend to parent in a way that we're doing too much for them for far too long. Children are extremely resilient and extremely capable little people. We just need to allow them to display and show their capabilities. So if your child is having difficulty getting up in the morning, as long as you ensure that they go to bed on time and they're not sitting up till 9 or 10, so they go to bed at 7, 8 o'clock, they have a story, lights out and they go to sleep, there is no reason that they shouldn't get up when the alarm goes off at, say, 7 a.m. So you have the meeting with them at the table and say, there's a new rule that mummy and daddy have decided. Because you're so clever and so big now, we've bought you your own alarm clock. And that means that when it goes off in the morning, you get up. Mummy's not going to come in and wake you up anymore. You're going to do that because you're so big and so clever. We believe you can do it all by yourself. And a child will always aspire to satisfy what a parent expects of them. They will always aspire to be bigger than, better than, grown up. And if they know that mummy and daddy get up with an alarm, or their older sibling gets up with an alarm, and now they've been given the opportunity to do the same thing, they will aspire to achieve exactly that. So we give them an alarm, and they can choose their own alarm clock. That is even better. And when it goes off, they eat breakfast. But you know what? If they're dawdling over breakfast, I would set an egg timer. It could be not a 3-minute one, it could be a 5-minute one if your child is a little bit slower. And say, I'm not going to tell you to eat your breakfast, it's your tummy. You can go to school with a full tummy or a half full tummy, up to you. But when you've got until that egg timer runs out to eat your breakfast. And you leave the child there. So there's no arguments, there's no hassling or discussion, there's no conflict. The child, in fact, should make that decision if they know that what you're saying is real and the breakfast will be removed from them after that egg timer runs out. Then they know their boundaries and their limitations. And this is where a lot of children are very confused. Parents will often say something to them, if you don't do this, I'm going to do that. But that doesn't actually often happen. So you've lost all credibility and they will not respond, and parents get very frustrated because, well, I tell them to do something and I threaten to do that, but I don't do that, and so, you know, there's no value in what we're saying to our child. So these are the small points that parents can adjust in their home to avoid conflict and to have the child, 1, take self-responsibility, 2, learn independence, 3, develop more resilience for themselves, and 4, be a wonderfully grown-up, helpful child that takes responsibility for their own actions and behaviours. And that's what we're after. A parent's job is to teach the child and prepare the child to be ready for their early adult life. That's the role of a parent. Of course, we need to protect and nurture and love, but the most important role that a parent has is to prepare their child for their adult life in front of them. And that adult life is starting these days at around 16 years old. Gone are the days when it was 21 or even older when you became an actual independent adult. It's starting much younger these days. So we need to push everything a little earlier than what we ever used to. And this is where I think some of the parents are struggling and having issues. And I get parents all the time coming in with their 15, 16, 17-year-olds. They won't cook, they won't clean up their room, they won't pick up a wet towel from the floor, they won't get up for school. All of these issues, you say, well, when did you expect them to start? If you did it for them up to the age of 15, when did you expect this magical wand to come over and tap them on the head and say, oh, I'm 15 and 5 months now, I'm going to do this? It doesn't happen that way. We need to start it from a very young age. And 5 or 6 is a great age. At 5 or 6, they can vacuum the floor. Maybe not great, but they can vacuum the floor. Give them a spray can and a cloth. They will wipe everything in the house with a cloth. They love to do that. Even 4-year-olds love to do that. They can set the table. They can put the dishes in the sink. They can wash up. They can even dry up by the age of 6 or 7. They can even help us cook the dinner, with supervision of course, stir something, learn to flip a pancake. All of these things a child can learn at a very young age. I know when my children started university at the age of 18, my youngest son was amazed that none of the kids at uni could even boil an egg, let alone make 2-minute noodles. And he would be in his room making chicken cacciatore, beef and red wine sauce, because he learned to cook from a very young age. I'm not a good cook, but I showed him how to cut up meat and vegetables and how to mix things together following a recipe book. So what we decided was that instead of all everyone coming into the room wanting to eat his food and costing him money, he decided to run cooking lessons. The kids would all purchase their own food, and enough for him, bring them into the room, he would show them how to cook the food, he would eat for free every single night, and he would teach the other children, or adults as they were at 18, to actually cook. And that helped them. And what was so sad, and what he commented to me, was that how regrettable it was that these now young adults were never afforded the opportunity at home by their parents to actually do this. So how old are our children when we have them help in the kitchen? 6 or 7. I mean, I'm involved in a preschool, and I know our 4-year-olds at preschool help us make Play-Doh, help us make cakes. They make sandwiches. So we teach them all of these skills that they're going to need throughout their life. And we can become better parents, I think. We can become more attentive parents by giving our children such a good opportunity to do everything they can to expand their world, if you like. And I think that's what a parent's job is. Apart from sitting down and reading them a book every night and giving them a cuddle and keeping them safe, of course. Now, we are here also with the MATES program, an inclusive program, being kindness, that we're here for. And we've got some models that have additional needs. So the difference with raising a child with additional needs compared to a child without additional needs, if you like, I find the difference negligible, because I believe all children have additional needs, some more so than others. But the fact is that regardless of what your child is carrying or what your child needs to learn to cope with, or the limitations that have been placed upon them, if we set the bar as high as we can for our child, then that's what the child strives to achieve. And you know what? If they can't always reach that pinnacle or that bar that they have set with you, that's okay. Because we then teach them, that's fine, sweetheart, we don't always need to reach that, but let's look at what we've done and what we've achieved. And it will always be more than where we started. So whether you've got a child with additional needs or a child that simply just needs you on a daily basis, we do need to look at setting the bar to a degree that's higher than what you perhaps expect. And once a child gets to about 7, engage with the child and discuss with them what it is that they want. And I don't mean what they want to do when they're a grown-up, not at all. It's like they're starting year 2 at school. So what is it you would like to do in year 2? What would you like to learn this year? What do you want? Well, Mummy, I want to read the year 3 readers this year, and I'm only in year 2, but I would love to learn year 3 readers. Okay, sweetheart, let's look at getting you ready to do that. So we may start doing an extra book every night. But it's not just a matter of setting the goal that we all hear about and get told on a regular basis. We often miss the steps to reach that goal. So if your child does say, I want to read like a year 3 and I'm only in year 2, great. So what are the steps to get there? Well, we're going to start with year 2 readers. We're going to read an extra book every single night. So you're going to have 2 readers. Then we're going to do some additional words. Then half the way through the year, perhaps we can start looking at year 3 readers. And then we'll work on that. So we need to set the steps with our child so we can achieve the goal. Because if we just set the goal, it's like we're starting here and we're ending there. And we probably won't get there. But we need to set the steps along the way to ensure that we do achieve what it is that we want, and we need to set those steps in conjunction with our child, because they're the ones that want to achieve what it is that they're aspiring to. Now, is there any questions before I continue from anybody that's in the audience?
From a child's perspective, what would they see as the kinder option? Kinder to them or kinder to mum?
Great question. From a child's perspective, what would they see as the kinder option? I believe the kinder option from a child's perspective is to be heard, is to be listened to, is to be understood. And often the child will say something to us and we'll, oh yeah, okay, or oh, not that we disregard them, but we're not curious enough. And I love the word curiosity. Because if someone says something, whether it be an adult or child or even our partner, and they make a statement or a comment, we think we know what they're talking about. But often we don't, because we're looking at it from our perspective, from our world and our experience. So we're curious. So if a child comes and says, the kids at school were being mean to me today, Mummy or Daddy, and we go, oh, that's really terrible. Oh, that's awful. I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, we'll play with someone else. Well, that's really not going to help the child, and I don't think that is a kind option for that child. So the first thing perhaps we need to ask is, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, sweetheart. Is that a problem for you? Yes, Mummy, it is. What does mean mean? I'm not sure I understand what being mean is. Could you explain to Mummy what being mean is? And you understand it from the child's perspective. And so they may explain something to you completely different than what you recognise that word to be. And it's interesting, it leads me to a story that I had a parent not too long ago that brought their child in to the counselling session because she rang up and she said, my child is gorgeous, beautiful little boy, he's 7 years old, And for the last 2 weeks, he's told me he hates me. He absolutely hates me. And I don't know why, and I'm so distressed. So she brought him in, and I had a chat with the child, interesting chat, and then I called Mummy back in after I got permission from the little one that, yes, it was okay to talk to Mummy. And I said, you know what, Mummy? You're right. He really does hate you. And she's going, oh my God. And I said, but before we go any further, and I said to him, darling, can you explain to Mummy what hate means? And he said, he looked at Mummy and he said, well, hate means you won't buy me that game for my Xbox. And I said, well, there you go. That's his definition of hate. He didn't get what he wanted as far as the game. Well, after Mum's back arched up and she started to get a little bit animated, I settled her down and said, okay, isn't it great now that we actually understand his meaning of the word hate? The same as what their meaning of the word mean might be, or wrong, or whatever it is. So we need to be kind enough to our children and other people and be curious enough to ask them what their meaning is of the words that we use. As it was, the child ended up getting his game, but not for another 7 or 8 weeks when it was his birthday. And so we did speak to the child about the actual meaning of hate from Mummy's perspective. And the child was actually quite sad and upset because he had no idea. He'd heard the word hate, but he really had no connection with what it really meant. And this happens a lot to us at home. And even if a child does say to us, I hate you, really? That's interesting. I don't understand. What does that mean? Well, you won't let me watch a show. Oh, okay. Well, hate's a very strong word, darling. We don't really use that. And we can explain what the word hate means. So these are the sorts of things that we need to do as parents to help us parent our children, to make our lives easier, to make them more informed and more prepared for their adult life before them, and also to take the conflict out of the home. And that's, I guess, my premise in most everything I do, to remove all conflict from our home, because you know what? I don't really think we need it. I think we can be kinder to each other in every way. And there was something that Michael said to me the other day which has resonated in my mind, even with a phone call to a telecommunications company yesterday that was difficult. Always take the kinder option. Now, they're very simple words, but they're so important, I think, for every human being. And when I was on the phone to the telecommunications company saying, this is the 3rd time I've called, it still hasn't been fixed, in the back of my mind was Michael's words, always take the kinder option. So I wasn't angry. I didn't become animated. I simply solved the problem and looked at, okay, we know what the issue is. Let's find the solution to this issue that can resolve it once and for all, which hopefully we did. But those words, always find the kinder option, always take the kinder option. I would like to leave everybody with those words. And if we can remember those, I think everyone will be happier, will be less confrontational, and the world will be just a more pleasant place to live in for all of us, adults, children and community. So thank you so much for listening, and in just a few moments we've got our fashion parade. Oh, sorry, there's a question? Beg your pardon?
How do you achieve a good balance today with technology and human interaction?
Good question. Technology and human interaction. All I can say for that is boundaries. Depending on the age of the child, you need to set boundaries. So if the children are under high school age, for instance 12 and under, then we need to set clear boundaries. 5 years old, okay. 5 years old isn't really a huge issue. Yes, they want to do all these sorts of things. And we should allow them to. I mean, technology is here. We can't keep it away from them. And I think technology is wonderful. And it can really enhance a child's learning. But anything done in excess is not good. So it's a matter of, okay, sweetheart, and again the choices. You've got 1 hour or you've got this long to play your game. Would you like to play it now, before lunch, or would you like to play it after lunch? But you've got 1 hour for your game when the big hand is here and it goes around to there, whatever they understand. And then you give it back to the child. Say, what would you like? Now, if he says, but I want to play it all the time, Daddy, like, well, I hear that, sweetheart. I can hear that's what you want. And, because we don't use the word but, that's another word we try to avoid. And you need to listen. I am saying to you, yes, you can play your game. And you will play it either before lunch or after lunch for 1 hour. So I'm giving you the choice. What do you choose, darling? And you'll be surprised. The child normally will take you up on that option. Oh, well, can I play it before lunch? Absolutely. Now that means that after lunch, you need to do something else. Read a book or go outside and kick a ball or go and play with the dog. But that's the choices. So we give them the choice and then we guide and we lead them to where it is we want them to go. But arguing with them will just make them dig their heels in even more, and it's a lose-lose for both of you. Has that answered your question? Great, thank you. No, the question's great. Okay, then we'll get ready for our wonderful fashion parade. So I welcome anyone that's around to please take a seat and watch our fashion parade, our mates fashion parade that will be starting in just a few moments. Thank you so much.